Hey everyone, welcome back. Sorry it's been so long since I've done a video. I've been moving house and obviously, life getting in the way, but I'm fully living the sustainable environment. I'm completely off grid where I am, and it's been, not without its issues, but it's been really good so far. But I'm in my new office, I've got a green screen, and yeah, I'm giving it a go. This is the first time. But anyway, let's get on to what this video is about. And this video is about the secret to successfully consuming and using multi-cloud within an enterprise environment, right? At scale, essentially. So I've been lucky enough to have been doing this for the last 8 years. A lot of organizations I got into actually went down the path originally of we're going to use multiple clouds and we're going to do it properly and we're going to do it from the ground up. And it worked. And I've obviously come in to help organizations that have done other things. I've seen what's failed, I've seen what worked, and I'm going to talk about what the most important thing is, and I guess the absolute linchpin for success, right? So let's just talk about first why going multi-cloud. Why is everyone going multi-cloud, right? And to me, it's pretty simple. It's the right tool for the right job, right? So, gone on the days of a hyperscaler going to lunch with a CEO, next thing you know, they're moving all their workloads to that particular cloud endpoint. And every single one of those I never saw work, right? Got to, they might have moved 10% of their workloads. That 10% was now costing the same as the 100% was before because there was no planning, it was just lift and shift. And they've still got their on-prem workloads, so their ICT budget's doubled, and they're in a lot of trouble, right? So this is where the multi-cloud comes in and being able to consume that efficiently and easily across your environment. So you want to, and I said it's the right tool for the right job, right? So for me, if I wanted to hammer a nail in, if I got a spanner or a shifter or something else, yeah, eventually I'll get that nail in. And eventually I'll get the outcome that I needed, but not without all the frustration and failures in between that, right? Where if I had just got a hammer in the first place, knocked it in, it would have been done in seconds, and it would have taken me a lot of time and money. And that's probably the most important thing for organizations, is the saving of time and money. So one of the other byproducts of if you successfully do this is competitive advantage, right? Being able to keep the hyperscalers or partners or vendors or whoever it is honest, keep their pencil sharp, because if you've got the ability to lift and shift and move your workloads or redeploy your workloads and pivot very sharply from one cloud to another, then all of a sudden you're not locked in, right? They've got no hold over you, which means that they're always very competitive to try and win your workloads. And that's what you want. They want your workloads, and you want to run a business, right? So you want to be able to make the most efficient choices possible, and you obviously negotiate for the right prices. And if you hold the leverage, then you're always going to be coming up in your favor, right? So let's get onto that secret, right? And it's pretty simple, but it's governance. So what do I mean by governance? Governance has, it can be pretty bad, right? The old change advisory boards and all these red tape that you have to go through. We've all been there. For a 5-minute bit of work, you have to do 5 hours worth of documentation and change approvals and all that sort of stuff. No, we're not talking about that governance. We're talking about organizational governance around the access of resources, the placement of resources, and why they get placed somewhere, right? So first and foremost, I don't want to talk about tools here, right? I'm going to talk about capability and functionality in this. So I'll try and take my VMware hat off a little bit here. But so what we're after is this governance. So this governance, and what I mean by that is we need a platform that is self-service, but self-service via API, CLI, UI, right? Because we want to service all end users, line of business users, admins, developers, non-technical staff. It doesn't matter who it is, right? And the reason for that is because if you start having people accessing the clouds directly, and I've seen this all the time, different teams doing different things. How do you know the resources are tagged correctly? How do you know they're on the right network? How do you know that you've got security in place? How do you, all these things that you can't track that, and it's very hard across multiple clouds to be able to do that because you've got different formats, different terminologies, different access rules. It's an absolute chaos, right, to be able to manage. And this is what we're trying to simplify and be cloud smart, right? So if we look at this, we need a platform, self-service, any resource, across any cloud endpoint, right? This single entry point. Simplify the access in all your different endpoints, and just simplify all that, really, the administration of those endpoints, right? So then we need to be able to go, okay, well, why does a resource get placed on a certain endpoint? So this is where the business rules come in. So, the end user themselves shouldn't care, if they deploy a database where it ends up, or if they deploy a VM where it ends up, or if they deploy a container, which Kubernetes edition that ends up on, or which cloud it ends up on, right? As long as they're getting the outcome. Now, unfortunately, they do care because everyone has favorites, but this is where, you have to be able to allow them to do their job, which means there's no red tape and they just get the outcome that they want. But at the same time, the business needs to decide why it needs to go somewhere, right? Because you can't trust the end user to make that choice. And that's very important, right? So the end users never make the right choice. So it's about, okay, do we place it here because of cost? Do we place it here because of locality? Do we place it here because of security and compliance? Do we place it here because of availability? Do we place it here because of performance? All those different reasons, and obviously you could have multiple of them, need to come together and then decide an outcome and the route that particular resource is going to take. So that's it. Whether it's a project or an application team or an environment or something else, being able to control the placement of those resources intelligently based on what's been chosen and who's deploying, makes life so much easier, and obviously keep the cost down and all the rest of it. Then you need the life cycle of those resources. So there's no point deploying a resource and then forgetting about it, right, and hoping someone cleans it up, because that never happens. Even if and I've seen it, doesn't matter if they're pets or cattle, people forget about things that they deploy and they exist forever, and then all of a sudden no one knows what it does, so everyone's too scared to destroy it. So it's about actually having that lifecycle governance as well on those machines. So putting in leases, depending on the environment, depending on the app, depending on the project, depending on, compliance and other things, how long does that sit around for if no one does anything or forgets about it, right? And this could be, again, organizational level, or it could be down to the particular person. There's lots of different things, lots of different ways you could do it. But you can go, you need that lease time or that life cycle, right? You need to be able to change that resource day two. If it's a VM, can I add a disk? Can I resize a disk? Can I can I change the rules on the load balancer? Can I update the firewall rules? Can I install a package on this machine? Can I do these things? Or, if it's a SaaS product, it's about changing the variables and capabilities of it, or the performance of it. I need IO1, all these things that you may need to do it as day two. Being able to then have that RBAC'd as well, and people are able to request that again via the UI or API or CLI or something, to be able to make changes to their environment in a self-service manner. But there's no approvals in there, right? It's all done as part of the deployment, as part of the life cycle of the machine. It's all automated. And obviously governance is obviously the key part, but the governance has to be automated, right? And that's sort of a given in these time. Everything needs to be automated. It simplifies everything. And also, when you're deploying a resource, does it need a CI created in CMDB? Does it need AD to join? Does it need satellite join? Does it need AV on it? Does it need, a particular security posture? Does it need certain patches? Does it need to be on a certain network? There's all these things that need to be thought about when deploying a resource that need to be automated. And again, based on the project, based on the app, based on the person, based on the business unit, whatever it might be, they all might have different rules based on where they're going. So one example is, I had a customer who, big Microsoft shop, they were running AWS and Azure and on-prem through a couple of private cloud providers, running vSphere. So they were using all three, and they actually made the choices of where workloads went. Now, obviously, they didn't have it as fully automated, but those sort of guardrails were set up as the project was set up. But what was great was one of them was a SQL upgrade project that they were doing across their environment. They needed all the testing, make sure the apps work, make sure all these things worked right. And during the testing phase and the development phase of this, the governance was put into place saying, okay, well, anything that gets deployed goes to Azure, right? Within this environment in Azure, because we can use our MSDN credits and it doesn't really cost us anything because we've already paid for it, right? So it's about being smart about that. But then when it came to production, because the data that some of these databases held, it was going on-prem, right, for compliance reasons. So they need the ability to be able to obviously have these blueprinted and this automation and everything done once and deploy anywhere they want, right? And being able to have that governance in place where the end users didn't even need to think about it. When they were deploying to prod, that's where it went. When they were deploying to Vev, that's where it went, right? So there's no thinking or nothing special the end user needs to do. It's the business controlling those things, right? So yeah, it's pretty simple. It's the governance aspect, right? And one of the other things that has sort of come up is really around people that adopted things fairly early. There's a lot of stitching together of bespoke products, right? You know, certain tools, and you're not gonna find. It's rare to find a single tool that does everything. You can find a platform, fully integrated platform that works well, but the organizations that had bespoke tools and they were stitching them together to create a sticky tape platform there, sticky tape and band-aided platform, is they ended up needing an entire team just to be able to maintain those indicators, and they had more failures than anything else, because the integrations weren't native. They were all handled by third party or through scripting or through something else. As soon as something updated, it broke everything, and it was just this maintenance cycle and this technical debt that they inherited, and it kept building day after day. It keeps growing, right? It never goes away. So a lot of people are after that one platform that can do at least 80% of what they needed to do, but be extensible enough that they can for certain circumstances be able to extend to that 100% if they needed to, and make the smart choice on whether they want to incur that technical debt, right? Start the business themselves, start acting like a cloud broker in a lot of ways. So anyway, that is it. It's nice and simple. It's something that a lot of organizations are doing now, but it's where I've seen organizations succeed is when they've thought about that governance process up front and first, right? Where I've seen failed is when they're trying to bring it all back in from having had the environment and all these different teams accessing different things, and it literally, I still today, 5 years on, I'm seeing organizations still trying to clean up the mess from when they first started, because they didn't really think about the governance aspect. They just sort of turned it on and yeah, we're multi-cloud. All of a sudden things aren't tagged properly, there's inconsistencies across the board, they don't know who owns what, there's things sitting around, they don't know what they do, and there's just this absolute mess, right? So it's about being able to have that observability from the business point of view and actually know that yes, no matter where I deploy it, it's going to be the right thing for the business, and get that outcome that you're after. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time. See you, bye.